11 minutes. All right. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monroe City Council meeting. This is the study session for March 1st of 2022. The time right now is 7:11 p.m. Ms. Wyckoff, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Council members present and establishing a quorum are council members Fulcher, Kinney, Hanford, Davis, Gamble, and Fisher.
Thank you. Councilmember Scarborough had mentioned at an earlier meeting that he would not be here this evening. Unless there's objection, we'll consider his absence as excused. All right, seeing no objection, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. That item would be the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Davis, will you please lead us in the pledge this evening? And thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Davis. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. This is item number 4. It's public comments. This is a time set aside for members of the public to speak to the City Council on any issue related to the City of Monroe, except any quasi-judicial matter that is subject to a public hearing. 3 minutes are afforded to each speaker. If you're interested in speaking this evening, please go ahead and hit your remote raise hand in Zoom or hit *9. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. That's announcements and presentations with Community Transit 2024 Network Planning. Ms. Wyckoff, go ahead. Ms. Wyckoff, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening we have Roland Behe and Thomas Tamala. I hope I'm not butchering your names. From Community Transit, here to give an update on their 2024 network planning. And have we already brought them in as panelists?
They're being brought in right now.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Behe and Mr. Tamola. Please go ahead and pronounce your names for the record, please, and I'll do my best to make certain I say them correctly.
Good evening. You had it correct, Roland Behe, and I'll let Thomas introduce himself.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. It's Thomas, then last name T-U-M-O-L-A, Tamola.
Tamola. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Wyckoff, did you have anything further?
All right. I do not. They can take it away.
All right, Mr. Behe and Mr. Tamola, please go ahead. Thank you. Good evening.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Roland Behe. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for Community Transit. Just really want to thank the council and Mayor Thomas for having us tonight. We're delighted to be here, and we have some really exciting things to share this evening with the city on projects and initiatives at Community Transit. We're going to provide an update primarily on our 2024 network planning work, which my colleague Thomas, who just introduced himself, is going to be presenting. As we look forward to our restructure service with the arrival of Link Light Rail in 2024 to Snohomish County. We're also going to, I get to set the groundwork for that presentation. I'm going to be providing a general update on community transit and also some information about some additional projects that we have going right now. After Thomas's portion of the presentation, Thomas and I will both be happy to take any questions. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with a brief update on where we're currently focused as an agency before I turn it over to Thomas, and he'll take a deeper dive into a couple of specific projects. The first area that we want to focus on is ridership and safety, and everybody's really aware of the impacts of the pandemic over the last couple of years. I just wanted to highlight that certainly community transit has seen an impact on ridership. Ridership continues to be substantially below pre-pandemic levels. What we've noticed as we've surveyed our customers and been aware of who's riding the service, we have really remained an essential service for many throughout the past 2 years. And many of the people that have continued to use transit on a daily basis are going to frontline jobs throughout Snohomish County, essential workers, and we're getting them to work and their destinations they need to get to every day of the week. We are beginning to slowly see ridership increase, and we expect this to continue. And as we begin to emerge from the Omicron wave, we're expecting to see more employers going back to in-person work. And we're expecting that to provide a positive growth on our ridership in the coming months. Regional integration has been a big priority for community transit. And council may recall that community transit first connected with Link Light Rail back in October of last year at Northgate as Sound Transit opened their Northgate Link extension. And that was our first experience with integration with light rail in a direct way. It's been a key to improving access regionally and opening up new economic opportunities. And also, as traffic has come back on the highways, it gives people an alternative to traveling on the freeway and helps with congestion as well. Also, just in terms of the work with integration, everybody's aware that Linwood Link is under construction, and anybody who's been on I-5 has seen the steady progress as the rails are coming north, and we see all the construction in the I-5 corridor with narrowed lanes and the clear evidence of that construction activity in the entire corridor. We likewise have been moving forward with building out our Swift BRT network to meet light rail as it comes north. And so Thomas will talk a little bit more about this in the presentation, but we're on track with our Swift Orange line and also the extension of our Swift Blue line down into Shoreline to connect at the 185th station and the Orange line connecting at Linwood City Center station. Service innovation has been a big focus for us. We're beginning to test new options like microtransit. And you may have read some of the media articles about the pilot, the community transit will be starting in Linwood. One thing that we're, along with many other transit agencies, are beginning to understand and have been studying a lot is that transit nowadays has an opportunity not just to pick people up at the bus stop when they walk out on the sidewalk to that bus stop or shelter, but we have the opportunity to come and get people. And people are using apps to hail rideshare services like Uber and Lyft. Transit agencies are also getting into this business with app-based microtransit services that really provide a whole new level of convenience and connectivity. And so we'll be testing that initially in Linwood later this year and have a vision for that being applied in many areas of our system. And Monroe's been a part of that conversation for us as well. Zero emission fleet study, we're as many transit agencies have been exploring zero emission buses. Community transit is also in the middle of a zero emission study. And for a while we were in a watchful waiting mode as we looked for the technology to mature around battery electric and or fuel cell buses. And we feel that right now is the time for community transit to take a more intentional step in that direction. And so we're in the middle of a comprehensive feasibility study that will look at a number of propulsion technologies for zero emission, also looking at what kind of capital infrastructure is needed to support that, impacts on the design of our services, impacts on workforce, maintenance of vehicles, et cetera. And so we're excited to be underway with that project. And it lines up well with our goals around the environment and climate change. Long-range planning, there's a lot of work going on with long-range planning at community transit right now. And Thomas will be talking about 2024, which will be a transformative year for us as we restructure our services around light rail. There is just a tremendous opportunity in front of the agency to provide a much different level of transit service in Snohomish County and a wider variety of services. And with the advent of light rail, with the opportunity for community transit to continue expanding and growing our services, with the advent of things like microtransit and new transit modes, and also with the changing in technologies like zero emission buses, it's time for us to really take a look at the next decades all the way out to 2050 and say, what is the new direction for community transit? What are the needs of our communities? What are we hearing from our partners? And what's in the regional plan in terms of lining up transit growth with land use and the growth of our communities? So we're taking all that into account and just to put a shout out there, we are currently out with a survey on our website, and that'll be running through the weekend. So go and check it out. Look at the Journey 2050 long range plan page on Community Transit's website, and tell us what you think. We're looking for public input on the next 30 some years. In terms of the topic today, 2024 network planning. As we all know, 2024 is going to bring the advancement of light rail to the county. This is really going to be a game changer, and Thomas is going to get much deeper into this topic, but our teams have been working on the service design for how we will restructure our entire network across the county around that opportunity that Link Light Rail presents, and the opportunity to reinvest services throughout the county at a higher level. And we've had some initial conversations with Monroe and with other cities in the Highway 2 corridor in recent months. Our teams have been working together on this planning work, and want to make sure today, as we share more about this, that you're aware of the upcoming opportunities to provide feedback into the process. And Thomas will provide more information about that. Before I turn it over to Thomas, I do want to just give a shout out as well on the city's behalf to Rachel Adams in Human Services. Rachel's been a real partner with us in terms of helping to get the word out on this process and connecting with many of the community-based organizations in the area. And we just wanted to thank her for her partnership and in helping us with this work. So with that, Thomas, I'll hand it over to you for the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Roland, and good evening. 2024 is kind of like a once in a generation type of opportunity with light rail coming north to Linwood, as you can see in the photo here on the slide. It allows us to completely kind of reboot and reshape our network, and it provides a lot more mobility opportunity, especially within Snohomish County. We can redirect a lot of resources that are focused on serving trips all the way downtown Seattle and back throughout on weekdays through what's often very heavy traffic. And that's going to make travel made much easier for all with that increased opportunity for more mobility throughout the county. Next slide, please. So we've completed phase 1 outreach earlier this fall, and we're about to transition here into phase 2 outreach. Phase 1 outreach was really covering just concepts, ideas, some early input. Ideas have been kind of lingering in some of our customers' minds for many years, and we've kind of going now into showing the output from all that earlier input, which is a draft network, which will show new routes, modified routes, and some existing routes, street by street and terminal to terminal. That's a big change sort of in our outreach process. And we want to capture more specific feedback at this point later this spring for the community and our partners on that initial design. And we've been, previously talking to a lot of planning staff and public works on a lot of these initiatives. Next slide. So like all large projects, you kind of go into it first with a few very clear articulated goals. We have 4 that are kind of underpinned by travel made easy for all. The first is probably self-evident so far, which is connecting bus to light rail. But with this real new expanded resource, we can actually add access through increasing our frequent network. That service that's 15 minutes or better all day on weekdays, and adjust to changing markets and look at new things like equitable access and reinvest and expand these hours throughout the county. I'd like to emphasize we're also adjusting to this changing market, both with not just Link coming in, but kind of the looking back of how the market's changed, especially the last 2 years with the pandemic and changes in the workspace and job space of the future. So we've got kind of a few foundational kind of modes of travel we're looking at in the study. This is again how our network could change about two years from today. And that's looking at not just local service, but Swift BRT service and express routes that are probably look most familiar. We operate many of them with our double decker buses along the I-5 corridor. But these, typically commingle with traffic on local streets and state highways like Highway 2. And as Roland mentioned earlier, we're looking at new service options that are more flexible, but lower capacity and typically focused in like a local neighborhood or zone within the city. Next slide. So kind of a prelude to this, we got some early experience here at Northgate, working with our partner Sound Transit and some of our contracted express service, the 510 series routes and our 800 series university facing 800 series routes, and directing them to Northgate in early October. That gives us on our customers a lot more experience with this kind of connection and sort of the dynamics of it, but also our customer base a lot new connections to different destinations within King County, which will expand greatly in the near future. We are learning lessons from this to be applied to our 2024 integration work with Linwood Lake. Next slide. So the biggest kind of pound for pound service resource in our future network and also in our current network is frequent service. So we're expanding this evidently with the Swift Orange line, which is that dashed orange line that you see there on the map, connecting Edmonds College with Linwood Transit Center, Ashway and Mill Creek. We're extending the blue line down there from the border of with Shoreline on the King County line down to the northeast 185th Street station or Shoreline North Station. And we'll Swift Green Line, which is a relatively new line for us, started up in a couple years ago, will continue its service level, but we're going to leverage a lot of new connections with some modified service. And you can kind of see these more thin gray lines here in the back. These are what we call transit emphasis corridors. We have a lot of our core and sort of intercity type of service operating on today. They'll continue to be a focus for some of these network initiatives. Next slide. So just a little bit of a close-up here on Swift Orange line. This is a new bus rapid transit line, kind of making this little zigzag pattern here through from Edmonds through Linwood over kind of unincorporated Snohomish County into Mill Creek and terminating at the McCollum Park and Ride. We're building a new transit center at Edmonds College and some redesign of the existing McCollum Park and Ride. There'll be 19 platform stations and procuring 15 new buses to provide that service. There'll be new speed and reliability infrastructure that kind of keep the buses on schedule and reliable throughout the day. This is a 11-mile corridor in total, and it's marquee connection there with Link Light Rail and also the Swift Green Line is important to note. So next slide, please. And just to kind of follow up on that, construction will start actually this April, and service is targeted to begin when light rail comes online in 2024. So new service options. This is something we're piloting starting this year. And as Roland was mentioning, it kind of looks like from a distance on the surface like paratransit, but it's very different. It is on demand, and unlike paratransit, it's open to all riders, and it doesn't require a long reservation. You can book it via technology such as smartphone apps. Those who are not really familiar with some of those tools can still call customer service or dispatch center and get access, to this new service. Has flexible stops and destinations, And later this year, this will be our first real world test, a little pilot project, which is operating kind of in a zone centered around Linwood Transit Center and Alderwood Mall between Linwood and North Linwood. Next slide, please. So as part of this whole process, we use a lot of data, and we looking at this data, how can we kind of not just reroute or kind of remap the network, but kind of look at, you know, the timing of the service we have and the populations it serves, and kind of who uses the service and kind of barriers to that. So we kind of start off sort of from the beginning, not sort of as a compliance exercise after the fact, at kind of embedding kind of several demographic factors into our analysis. That's not just looking at like income and limited English proficiency, but looking at population that is foreign born, communities of color, Latinx populations, and limited English speaking households, and also populations living with a disability. These are populations that are typically very dependent on our service, and comes across pretty loud and clear in a lot of our surveys over the years. So next slide. On the outreach process, as I kind of illustrated in an earlier slide, this is a kind of a multi-step public outreach process. We're going from phase 1 to phase 2. As part of phase 1 outreach this fall, we got almost 1,000 total responses, which is pretty good response level given other efforts we've had in the past. We've met with several community-based organizations. For phase 2 outreach coming up here later this spring, there are definitely some areas that needed some additional focus or improvement. And as an example, more tactical outreach to local riders at major transfer points, which do not include the typical like very large transit centers and park and rides. This was definitely a very big first step into our more inclusive outreach process. So next slide. So just kind of high level here, kind of what did we hear back from some of our existing customers and potential customers and residents throughout the county and region. There's travel to work, I would say, still dominates for our respondents, but you know, COVID and the COVID pandemic, and also light rail, which is a service that runs pretty high levels of accessibility and frequency throughout the day and through the week, from dawn to dusk to almost midnight. This will continue to kind of impact that kind of market and maybe shift us more towards demand that's more flat kind of throughout the day. The demographics of the respondents were very reflective of the broader overall community that we serve. And it reflects the sort of efforts to include more diverse input that we had when we started this process. Phase 2 will need to encourage responses for more transit dependent riders and high use neighborhoods where there's customers or potential customers that use our service for multiple needs. One other thing we heard here was riders want ease and convenience for their trip. They don't want 2-3 transfers to get from A to B. They want maybe one transfer. And there's kind of a split in areas in case of potential for additional ridership for non-commute trips. And there was probably like least interest in more service in the afternoons, but definitely kind of focused a bit more towards midday, which is kind of between when people stop going to work traditionally and start leaving the school. So kind of like 9 to 3 p.m. A lot more focus still on the weekday overall, and a little bit of an edge on Saturdays versus Sundays. So next slide. Overall project schedule. So we've been pretty busy. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Councilmember Gamble, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question on the last slide.
Sure.
We'll go ahead and move the slide back. Thanks.
We got it back. We're there. I just was wondering the data set on this. What was how much feedback did we get? feedback on the service additional priorities. Is this, what was the sample size?
Yeah,
Response-
we had a big media push and push with our existing customers to kind of solicit the surveys. But out of all the pings that we put out there, we got almost 1,000 responses, which is really good given other surveys that we've done before, and the overall kind of profile who responded dovetails pretty well with the demographics of the area that we serve.
And did you break those demographics out by city, location?
Yes.
Like what parts of the county?
Yeah, absolutely. And on this effort and our also long range plan, there is a geographic breakout. So we can do multiple cross tabulations and have that data
Oh, cool.
available. Yeah.
All right, anything further, Councilmember Gamble?
No, I just, we always hear that we don't have enough service out here. So there's, when we look, this is all good stuff. But we're still very much lacking for our community transit in the Monroe area. So I'm always really interested in the data that you guys do receive and the demographics and where that's coming from. So thank you.
Thank you. Before Mr. Tamola continues, are there any other questions thus far from council members? All right, please continue. Thank you.
So going back to the project schedule, I was mentioning we've been pretty kind of the lead up this year, very busy, but kind of working on a more detailed design as we've processed this survey data that we've had. And I'd also like to mention, we also have travel data that's from atomized mobile phone services that we can look at, like where are folks in Monroe traveling to. So we've can kind of see like very large flows towards Everett and I-5, obviously, but also very large flows going down to kind of Kirkland, Totem Lake, Bellevue area. That's actually a very major flow and is kind of providing us some very valuable input. So right now in winter 2022, we're doing a lot of partner agency outreach in the lead up to phase 2 external outreach here in later in the spring, starting at the end of April. This again will focus on draft route proposals and will carry through to the end of May. Just want to mention there's 2 other separate efforts, one by Sound Transit, one by King County Metro, who are also coordinating with us on their own service restructuring efforts. They just, King County Metro just kicked theirs off in early February. Implementation activities after the design is kind of put to our board with a proposed adoption target date of December 2022 would go into an implementation phase, and that there's a lot of training, testing of new routes, scheduling, and detailed routing. It's a big lift, and the assumption here at the end is that Linwood Link is targeted open kind of mid-2024, June, July timeframe. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Roland.
You're on mute.
Thank you. I knew that was going to happen at least once. Thanks, Thomas. Thank you also, Council and Mayor Thomas, for allowing us to come and provide you with an update on our current initiatives and the service planning work and 2024 network restructure that Thomas has described. I think just going off of kind of building on what Councilmember Gamble was just mentioning, this is really, it's a game changer for us in terms of the opportunity to reinvest in Snohomish County. And I guess the thing that I would note is for many years, community transit's DNA was really defined around our express commuter service. We really collected people in Snohomish County, and a big part of our business has been carrying them to major employment centers in King County. And this really gives us the opportunity to allow Sound Transit to take over with light rail, that primary I-5 market. And we get the opportunity to reinvest in Snohomish County as a whole. And what that means is communities like Monroe and other cities throughout the county will really see a rising tide of transit service. And so a lot of what Thomas has described is is the opportunity for us to provide more mobility all day and throughout the entire week, to make, for people to make those local connections they need to make, but also to get to regional destinations as well. So it's going to be a whole new era in terms of the level of service we're able to provide, the quality of connections, and some new things that we've never done before. Talking about things like service on demand and being able to hail that with the smartphone that you have in your pocket. So there's a bright future out there. We're really looking for public input and engagement in this next phase. And like I said, be looking for those opportunities, both for city staff and also for the community as a whole as we move into the next few months. So with that, Thomas and I would be happy to take any further questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about all this stuff. I mean, I like to go down to the city quite a bit, and there's it's gonna free up even for major events, as well, Husky games and concerts and Kraken games and and all that kind of stuff. So it's fantastic beyond just getting folks to and from work and school and all that type of stuff. But I guess the question I still had, because we've done a lot of research on this over the last many years here, and the last time we checked, am I not mistaken that from a community transport perspective, we do have to go all the way to the Everett station in order to get to Bothell, correct?
Currently, that is, for most trips, I think in today's network, and I might lean a little bit on Thomas for this, but going in on the 200 series into downtown Everett, and then getting on one of the Sound Transit 500 series to get to Canyon Park or downtown Bothell. And I want to say that connection, recognizing the importance of the 522 corridor and the direct access to the east side that Thomas was describing, that's been a key finding in the travel demand data that we've looked at, the mobile phone data that Thomas was talking about, and it's been a feature of our 2024 network planning.
Yeah, I guess because I don't see that in any of your documentation. I've yet to see anything route planning. I get, unless I missed it in the presentation we just went through, capitalizing on use 522, because that's always been. I mean, we've, even to get to the Duval area or Mount Sinai, I mean, it's a 6-hour bus ride. So we've done individual relationships with the private busing companies to try to give transportation to citizens to get to and from Duval and to get to the Mount Si area in the Snoqualmie area. So I want to get really excited about this for Monroe residents, but the primary way for traffic for them and where you want to access, and it sounds like you're seeing that data now too, and what we get consistently is I need to get to the east side, or that's awesome, we got this light rail coming, but it's going to take me all day to get there if I got to go into Everett and catch a transfer, to go down, whereas if we were able to use 522, go up 405, to access it, or for simply having access to the college, the college institution there's in Bothell, which is great. It was great to see that line that you have carved out. I want that same opportunity for citizens of Monroe in this community to have access to go to and from the University of Washington in the Bothell area. And we have a lot of folks that go to school there. And if they want to get there now, they got to go to Everett on a bus. And to me, that's, we're failing, as public are failing, not being able to figure that out. And I get it. We've got 2 different counties, we got 2 different legislative districts, and there's a lot of stuff that is sliced and diced up there. But we got to figure it out. So that's my 2 cents. But I really appreciate you guys coming and presenting this stuff. It's just, I've been sitting and looking at these for about 10 years now, and I still have not seen anything where on the agenda there is something with a stake in the ground that says we're gonna take advantage of the work that is coming for 522, or work with Monroe to get bus lanes on the side or whatever the case may be, to have some sort of line utilizing that so that we can connect straight to all this good work that's going on. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Are there any other questions or comments from council members? All right, go ahead, Councilmember Kenny.
Just wanted to thank you very much for the presentation. Very interesting. Just had a quick question about ridership and if it's been affected by the increase in flights at Payne Field, and if we have sort of factored that in terms of making it easy to take public transit to get to the airport and then back home again.
I'll start. I'll ask Thomas if he's got anything to add. We have included Payne Field on our Swift network, and so we have a Swift Green Line station that's just outside the main terminal area out on Airport Road. We have seen some traffic to the airport, but of course the service levels, particularly through the last 1.5 to 2 years during the pandemic, have been lowered, and so we haven't really seen what I would call a significant level of traffic on the system destined for the new airport. But that is something certainly that's figuring into our longer term planning, and as I said, we have made investments in bus rapid transit infrastructure to serve the new airport. So it's definitely figuring into our planning. I think it's still early days in terms of the level of traffic that we're seeing there.
Great, thank you very much. One other question I had for you is if you've seen any staffing issues in terms of the great resignation that we hear about, if you've had people leaving or any kind of trouble filling driver positions, mechanic positions, anything like that, if that has affected community transit.
Yeah, absolutely. We're no different than many other, whether public agencies or private, and particularly the transportation sector right now is it's really tough to find people with commercial driver's license. And I think you've probably all seen, even all the trucking companies are really scrambling, looking for workforce. Community transit is, we're looking at a lot of innovative strategies to attract a talented workforce and retain the workforce that we have. Right now, the number of coach operators that we have is one of the most significant limiting factors on how quickly we can grow the service. So we're doing everything we can to find good people. And I think when you go to the website, you can see evidence of that. We're in full-blown hiring mode right now, trying to ramp up the workforce to support this higher level of service that we're planning for.
Right. Thank you so much. Good luck with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Kenny. Councilmember Gamble, go ahead.
Questions, Councilmember Kenny, and you also made me remember the other questions I was going to ask and I forgot. So thank you. Have you guys experienced, I think it was Sound Transit that's been having quite a bit of difficulty with collection of fares, and it's been impacting revenues. Have you guys, are you experiencing some of the same issues with collection of fares?
We've seen, so fare revenue is, it's very closely tied with ridership. And of course, with our ridership being down during the pandemic, we've seen a substantial drop in fares, just tracking with the, ridership drop down below 50% of pre-pandemic levels. So that's definitely affected fare revenue. We have not been affected to the point where we have had to curtail service or, adjust our plans due to that. But we are, I will say, we are also tracking the current Supreme Court case closely, which could affect the ability to enforce fare collection on the buses.
Okay, so you guys are enforcing fare collection on the buses? I guess that's, really my question.
We are. We have fare ambassadors on the bus that do fare checks, and so that's that's a regular part of what we do. Part of our system is on the Swift system. It's the honor system. It's offboard fare payment at stations.
So it's on the Swift. So are you seeing about a similar, or it's 60% loss of revenue? So I get it that you're down ridership, but a lot of the data that I've been consuming is that where we have the honor system, unfortunately, it doesn't appear that the honor system is working the best. So tracking the court case is going to be extremely important, because the ridership being down and we're not collecting fares for those that are riding is an issue. So I guess that's my question. You guys are experiencing very similar then on the honor system lines that you have?
We are experiencing, let me see, the best way to answer the question is that we're continuing to enforce fare collection on the buses. We do experience some of the same issues that Sound Transit does. Whether it's to the same degree, right now it's difficult to say. We definitely are interested in tracking the Supreme Court case because it would impact community transit as well. So
Okay.
it's certainly an issue of concern for us. We like I said, that we do continue to collect fares across the system.
No, I appreciate the answer to that. I guess I just, for the mayor and maybe our transportation committee, as we look at, whether we're making trips back to DC or advocating or that type of stuff, I just think it's important that we have that top of mind as well. Because if we're having issues with revenues and funding with transit, and then we can't collect fares, it's going to make it even more difficult. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for community transit? I'm going to add to what Councilmember Gamble brought up about 522 and 203. What's it going to take to get a community transit line down 522 to reach Bothell?
What I would offer is I would really ask you to watch the upcoming public process closely, and we'll be first engaging with the city before we're out in public, but we have some proposals in the 2024 network restructure that address the 522 and 405 corridor from Monroe.
Okay. And how about 203? We've, as Councilmember Gamble's explained, we ended up entering into a partnership with King County on a grant that they came forward with to develop our own transportation network across the Snoqualmie Valley from Monroe down to Duval, that then continues from Duval down to, I think, North Bend. So how about 203? Is that something else that community transit can be part of?
I think we have an opportunity to talk about partnership on 203. We were a participant in the initial pilot for that through SnowTrack and the Mobility Coalition, and I think we're certainly open to further conversation. We have coordinated with the Snoqualmie Valley Transit Authority and have been in conversation with them about their initiatives and how we might work more effectively together. So I would say let's identify that one for further discussion, and I think we're open to that conversation.
Okay, I think I've lived in Monroe since 2000, so for 21 years now. I came here in part because it's what I could afford and work in Redmond, and I am aware of a number of people that work on the east side, and this is where they could afford to live. So that's how we ended up here. I feel like there's a lot of focus on Snohomish County connections from US 2 to I-5. And I think that there's a lack of understanding sometimes about geography. We're frequently called East County, and we're not East County. We're Southeast County. We're south of Everett. For us to be heading northwest on Highway 2 to turn around and go south to try to get to Bothell is just ridiculous. We have I think about a third or more of our population that when we do go to work, we don't head to Everett. We head down 522 and we head down 203 to get to the east side and get to Seattle. I don't know if it's because of the way the community transit district boundaries are. I don't know if it's because of there being a separation between Snohomish County and King County. I don't know if it's because of legislative districts, but there's a population out here that would like to use transit to get to the Bothell area, just like Councilmember Gamble mentioned. And then from there to take 405 south or 522 into Seattle or 405 north to get to the Linwood area. This is an area where we need to have reliable transit services beyond what Sound Transit is providing today down 522. So just sharing that with you. I suspect there are other council members that feel the same as Councilmember Gamble that haven't chimed in on this here tonight, but I would like you to hear that from me, sharing my own experience and also sharing my son's experience, who went to the University of Washington Bothell every day and had to drive his own car to get there rather than using a community transit bus, because as Councilmember Gamble put it, 4 hours or so to get to Bothell is ridiculous. So thank you. Councilmember Hanford, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to voice my support for everything that Councilmember Gamble has said earlier and that the mayor just stated as well. Just didn't want you to think that it's one council member on our council that has these thoughts. I think we're probably all in agreement.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanford. Councilmember Fisher, go ahead.
And yes, just to follow up on that, also in agreement.
Thank you very much. All right, and we do appreciate the presentation this evening. We do appreciate the work being done on the I-5 corridor. And we look forward to improved services out here in Monroe. So thank you very much.
Thank you for all the feedback. Really look forward to engaging with you and your staff as we go into our next phase of outreach. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda this evening, and that item would be council member reports. We'll just kind of move through the people according to where you are on my screen. We'll start off with, if everybody stops moving, Councilmember Kenny. Councilmember Kenny, go ahead. Any report this evening?
Earlier this winter, the Monroe School District hired a consultant named Bill Dela Cruz to conduct a 2-day listening tour throughout the community, gathering information on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the community. And his report summary is now available on the district website, and it was sent out to staff and families on February 25th. So I gave that a read, and just in an attempt to stay up to date on what's happening in the community with the school district and how it affects all of the residents here.
Thank you, Councilmember Kenny. Councilmember Fulcher.
Yes, thank you. I was just looking at my calendar and I can't think of anything in particular, so I will pass.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Fisher.
We had public safety meeting tonight, me and Councilmember Fulcher. So we attended that.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Fisher. Councilmember Hanford.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Gamble.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is I just, obviously world events, issues as they are. I just wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation for this body and working with everybody that's here and how professional and everybody, the decorum that we maintain. And then just, my heartfelt thoughts and prayers to the people of Ukraine and, the tensions that we have there. And I just, I pray for our leaders and for, emotional intelligence and staying in check. These are trying times, and we just need people to make decisions not based on emotion. So I truly am praying for peace tonight and not escalating as much as possible. So I just wanted to say that. And then I thank you, Councilmember Kinney, for bringing up the report. I remember that was put forth, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. And I do know that, the mask mandate was upped to the 12th. So I'm assuming that may potentially impact our ability to meet in person. So that would be great. And hopefully we'll talk about that tonight. I think it's already on there. And then I guess the only other piece is that I would, like to, the district also sent out that even though the mask mandate is being lifted on the 12th, that because of the negotiation that the teachers union did with the school district, the kids are still required to wear masks through the end of the year. And that is something that I feel, they are going to negotiate, I hope. But I just, we've been following the science all the way along. We've been beautiful in doing what the health administrators have been saying for us all across, and now they're saying it's okay to unmask. And it's important to me. Hold on a second. We have too many things on. apologies, too many things going. It's important to me that, and I'm hearing from a lot of people in this city, that for our kids, that we get them back to a normal life. They've experienced enough damage and trauma through this whole process, and I am really want to put my support around kind of some rationale and for people to come together and make that happen. Both the teachers union and the Monroe School District, and for us to, you know, I get it, businesses and folks, that's great. You want to keep masks, that's fantastic, but the shaming can end, and the high tensions and using that as just a constant political divide needs to be over. I'm ready, and I'm praying that we're going to get there quickly. And would appreciate any support, because I will be voicing my support at meetings and with others around getting our kids back to normal school as soon as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to mirrored administrative reports, extended agenda. Ms. Wyckoff, go ahead.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. If I start cutting out, I'm making Becky take over. So for your March 8th meeting, we have your Legislative Affairs Committee meeting, which we will have continued discussion regarding the council rules of procedure, some Chapter 4 board and commission amendments, and a legislative update. And then for the regular business meeting that evening, we will have a state of the court address by Judge Ness. Under consent, we will have our standard items, as well as accepting the project and beginning the lien period for the 20. Wow, my whole screen just went black. Becky, can you take over?
Okay, Becky, you've got the ball.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I believe that you were discussing the March 8th regular council meeting, the state of the court address with Judge Ness. We have the typical items under consent agenda, as well as the acceptance of a project beginning the lien period for our annual road maintenance projects that were completed in 2021, along with the regional trainers group interlocal agreement. There is a public hearing scheduled for the right-of-way vacation at 171st Avenue Southeast, and then final action on the wireless code and the franchise code. Currently, there is no new business scheduled, but we do have unfinished business with regards to ordinance amending Chapter 4.50, which is the Park Board, as well as the repeal and replace of the Park Impact Fees Ordinance, and then all the typical department reports. Then on the 15th, as was noted by one of our council members, and hopefully we're not stealing the mayor's thunder here, that we are scheduling our first hybrid meeting that evening with the regular city council meeting. And the reason that I was caught a little off guard was I was just sending a message to the mayor to ask him if he thought it would be appropriate if we did the Finance HR Committee meeting fully in person. And that takes us through the extended agenda. So, Mr. Mayor, I turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, with the change of the mask mandate, we are going to be holding our meetings hybrid effective the 15th of March. So this coming week, I'll be actually Monday, I'll be working with staff just to make certain that everything in chambers works correctly. Our committee meetings will be held as hybrid as well. And so we will schedule the Finance and HR Committee as a hybrid meeting so that if you want to participate remotely, you can, but we will also be able to hold the meeting in the appropriate committee meeting room in person. So next week, I anticipate that I'll be holding the council meeting from chambers just to make certain everything is working for an actual council meeting. And then, like I said, we'll have the public in on the 15th after the mask requirement goes away on the 11th. And as a reminder, if you want to participate remotely, you have the ability to do that. We will make certain that we are just like we normally do, practicing the discipline we do, where I call on people so that we don't have people having sidebar conversations, which can make things difficult for people to hear if they're participating remotely, whether they're members of the public, staff, or other council members. So looking forward to that on the 15th, and we'll have some more information with you to you over the next week. All right. As far as anything else on the mayor's report, I would direct your attention to Monroe this week. I did attend the meeting last week with, and I forget the name of it, but the initials are CLT, the Conservation Land something or other. I attended about half of the meeting and got an introduction to the way that process works, and appreciate our Chisab board chair for his work, kind of bringing that together to get a presentation. There were, I think, about 6 people present, and that included me. I don't know what the city's role would be in something like that, but as I learn more, or as he learns more, I'm sure that we'll share that information with the council. Does anybody have any questions for me this evening? All right, thank you very much, everybody. We're going to go ahead and move on now to discussion items, and this will be the municipal campus plan, City Hall, municipal clerk, building, architectural program update with our director, Mr. Roberts. Go ahead, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I am here to provide, per Mayor Thomas and Deborah Knight's request, a update to the council on the status of the municipal campus project. So this is a long-running project. Next slide, please, Becky. A long-running project. We've been working on it collectively as a city since 2008. On the left-hand side there in the lighter blue, you'll see the projects that we have completed to date. I'm not going to dive into those too much, but there's 9 of them there, and they've been pretty municipal campus impactful over the years. Then on the right side, you'll see projects 10 through 14. You may notice that I accidentally put 12 twice. I was really into the Seahawks that day, apparently rooting for the 12th fan. So in any case, I am going to run through those. In November of 2019, we completed a campus facility condition study. That's an assessment of all of our buildings and where their failure points are. Needless to say, there were many of them, and there's a lot wrong physically with our facilities. They are aged and they are in need of repair, particularly on the northern edge of the campus. In January of 2020, Council developed the municipal campus project funding policy. Director Hassert will undoubtedly touch on that when we talk about finances later on, coming up at committee meetings and then also a future council meeting. In March of 2020, the project, much like everything else, was delayed due to the pandemic, excuse me, and then we picked it back up in June of 2021, where we selected a project architect to continue with the process, and that was taken to council and approved. In September of 21, the project team, which includes a representative from every department that is in the City Hall facility, begin update on programming work, so that's architectural planning, and then assessing what our current needs are, our future needs, and going through an adjacency exercise. And then that was developed and refined until we get the results. And then, well, we're here tonight doing the project update. So next slide, please. So kind of looking at task 1 in the project, the square footage needs assessment and adjacency assessment. So the square footage needs assessment programs out about 30 years, which allows us to plan for future growth. And these can be tied to, and I just put an example up here of the comprehensive plan, but they can also be tied to utility system plans. And it's a direct correlation with our projected population growth, and trying to assess what our future staffing needs are so that we have future square footage able to accommodate those, as well as public meetings, council meetings, committee meetings, things of that nature as we go forward. The adjacency assessment really considers, go ahead. Thank you, Clerk Hassert. The adjacency assessment, which is the picture that's on the screen there, what that really does, that is a kind of, I'm going to say the outline there is the footprint of the existing City Hall. And what this does is this identifies where departments need to be situated in relationship to the general public, to, let's just say, the council chambers and one another, in order to effectively do business and to carry out their role and deliver their services to our community. So as you look to the northern there, the existing public access point that goes into City Hall somewhat remains in place. It would be on the northern edge of the facility, and that allows access to those core services, finance, parks and rec, the chambers, executive sessions, the clerk as needed, Public Works and Community Development for those counter calls and things of that nature. Then to the south edge there, you see highlighted in red, that's some form of additional square footage that has yet to be exactly identified. But what that does is that takes in the court and then also access to the police. So you'll see where the HRIT bubble is there. Imagine that being a defined wall. That's not necessarily a public access point. That's just a shared wall, so that people that are coming in to receive community services, court services, and things of that nature can come through that entry there and access those. And then also the important relationship between the court and the police for working and maintaining efficiencies is represented there. So any questions on that slide before we go forward?
Are there any questions from council? No, please continue, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. Next slide, please. There we go. The next task was to complete a rough order of magnitude cost estimate. So this estimate would include design fees, permitting, taxes, construction, furnitures and fixtures. Any of us who have bought a vehicle in our lives, this is tax, title, license out the door. So this is what it costs in order to relocate into a remodeled facility or a new facility. Next slide, please. And then we start to look at that estimate detail. We're in phase 1.1 right now. The design years are 2022 through 2023. The rough order of magnitude cost range for this is about $690,000. It was included in this year's adopted budget. As we move into phase 1.2, that would be the remodel of City Hall, complete redo of City Hall, and update of the municipal court in addition, 2023 through 2025. The price tag there is estimated at 16 to 20 million. And then as we're ramping down the construction project for the City Hall and Municipal Court, we begin to simultaneously ramp up the design of the Monroe Police Station remodel and small addition. That would be 2024, 2025. And then finally, phase 2.2, which occurs in 2025, 26, would be the remodel in addition to the Monroe Police Station. That price tag is estimated at 5.5 to 6.5 million, bringing the total for the project costs over the course of the 4 to 5 year span at $21.5 to $26.5 million. As I said earlier, Director Hassert and myself, and I'm sure Mayor Thomas, the Administrator, and I will be discussing with the entire council in April, but then also we will be discussing it with the council committees, the finance, the fund committee, as we call it, will be the second week, I believe. Is that correct? Second week in March, third week. That's what I said. Yes, the third week in March. And then also the P3 committee, the one that I'm most often responsible for attending, which I know is the fourth week in March. So next slide, please. So, and then finally, task 3, as we move through, presuming council does approve some sort of a funding strategy to keep this project rolling forward, we'll continue with phases 1.1 and 1.2. And then we will again kick off phases 2.1 and 2.2 in 2024 for the police station. Next slide, please. And there is the project schedule. It might be pretty difficult to see on folks' small screens tonight, but if you log on and look at it online through your agenda packet, it should be pretty easily defined. And then I believe that closes the presentation. Mayor Thomas, I turn it back to you. I'm happy to field questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Roberts? Go ahead, Councilmember Kinney.
Quick question about, I guess I should have brought this up when we were on the slide that sort of showed the map of the facility, but I had a question, and forgive me if this has already been dealt with prior to me becoming a council member, but the entry driveway access off Main Street has always been extremely awkward for this property. And I'm wondering if a redesign of that entry point into the parking area is part of this plan.
It is, and Mr. Roberts will discuss that.
Wonderful.
Councilmember Kinney, it sounds as though you're a member of the P3 committee based on that assessment. You're absolutely correct. That is a very, I'm going to use diplomatic language, that is a very poor alignment choice there. And yes, that is in consideration. If you look in the council packet, I believe on this agenda bill, it is page, I didn't put a slide up of it, page, I think it's 7. There's kind of a conceptual layout of the parking lot, and it assesses whether or not we have enough space to accommodate the number of spaces that we would need in the future. And it does address that and really bring that driveway into more alignment, into a 90-degree alignment with the Main Street there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I also was curious about what, how the public has been apprised of this project so far, if we have taken this out in any way and shared this information with the community, or if that is to come.
So we've been discussing this so far with council. So it's just been something that's been discussed in council meetings. And like Mr. Roberts had pointed out previously, it is a continuation of a plan that Mr. Roberts, was it adopted probably 10 years ago or so?
2008.
Oh, geez. I was a council member then, apparently quite a long time ago. So Mr. Roberts, do you have anything further to add on that?
No, I would only submit that it has been talked about at more than 10 council meetings over the course of these years, just because of the number of projects we've had, but we've not had a specific public outreach plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulcher, go ahead.
Yeah, I have been kind of watching the progress of this since my first time I attended a council meeting 6 years ago, and I have 3 words to say about stinking time. We know that our city chambers, we know that our city hall is outdated, is in such disrepair. It is, it's really important that we get a good building for all of our employees, that we are showing them the same respect that other companies have done, you know, that are providing for their employees. I just think that this is a timely thing. 2008 was back when we started this. Long time. I am excited to see it get moving.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulcher. Any other questions or comments from council members? Any concerns about the adjacencies that were shown there? As you can see, the council chambers will increase in size. They're also trying to, so just from a council perspective, we're also trying to cluster the clerk's office and the administrator and the mayor's office in sort of in that wing as well, so that everything's connected. You'll also see that there's an interest in having a meeting room for executive sessions right off council chambers, just so that we don't have to go walking through the building to the middle of the building for committee meetings or for executive sessions and things like that. So those are just a couple of things that I would sort of highlight for you from a council perspective. Go ahead. And before I recognize Councilmember Kenny, Mr. Roberts, is there anything else there that I've missed to point out that may be of particular interest that we've discussed relative to council?
No, I think you actually hit 2 of the points I intended to, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councilmember Kenny.
I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to the Parks and Rec placement. It's wonderful to have that group within this building. You know, someone that's been on that board and had to go out to their sort of facility on Village Way. It's going to be wonderful to have that group right there. Will just really be a wonderful change. So just wanted to draw attention to that and applaud the design.
Thank you. All right. And then I am going to be working with staff to see about giving council members the opportunity to have sort of a guided tour through our existing building. I know that we've done this previously, probably 4 to 6 years ago. We have new council members, and we do have a number of staff members that are now sharing offices. So, you know, conditions have sort of changed, not just issues related to sewage backing up from our restrooms and leaks in the roofs, but also these days issues with staff doubling up in rooms and things like that. So I really appreciate the council making this a priority. Like was noted before, the plan was adopted in 2008. And staff has been executing the plan since then. So thank you. All right, anything further, Mr. Roberts?
No, Mayor, that'll be all.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's it for discussion items. We now have a need for an executive session. The executive session is pricing of property pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1 subsection B. What will happen is we'll go into executive session, and I will announce extensions as may be needed. And Ms. Hassert will then share those, or Ms. Wyckoff will then share those in this current meeting, which will continue while we are in the executive session. And we will reconvene when the executive session is over for potential action, if nothing else, to adjourn or to adjourn for the evening. We are going to go in executive session beginning at 8:21 for an initial 7 minutes. I'll see you there, council members.
For the record, this is Becky Hassert, Finance Director. Executive session has been extended an additional 2 minutes to 8:30. Thank you. My apologies, sorry.
It's okay, no worries. Okay, we are now out of executive session. There being no further business this evening, and unless there's objection, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Is there any objection?
Nope.
All right, we are adjourned. Have a great rest of your week. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Everybody.
Bye.